For years, some of the world's largest banks moved huge sums of allegedly dirty money despite warnings about its provenance, according to a trove of leaked secret files. The findings are based on more than 2,000 suspicious activity reports filed by financial institutions with the US Treasury. They were obtained by BuzzFeed News and shared with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists as well as other media organizations. Banks that appear most often in the leaked files include HSBC, Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan Chase and Standard Chartered. Well, Simon Bowers is European coordinator and lead FinCEN Files reporter for the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, and he joins me now from London. Well, thanks for taking time to speak to us here on the programme. Well, it's worth noting that a lot of these suspicious activity reports, as you call them, are not necessarily proof of wrongdoing, and they're filed because they're filed by the banks themselves. So if a bank is named in these reports, it's not necessarily a sign of wrongdoing, is it?
Well, no. I mean, arguably, filing a report is what a bank is supposed to do. It's a demonstration of diligence, you could argue. But when you take a closer look at the contents of these reports, you really see that the transactions that the banks are clearing, particularly through the US, that they really cross a threshold and go wildly beyond a vague suspicion of possible wrongdoing to sort of screaming warning lights all over the place. And it's really those particular suspicious activity reports that we felt we really wanted to bring to the public and show these kind of transactions were going on, and the banks were prepared to, they had a tolerance for that kind of high-risk transaction.
Now, you've been involved in many of the major leaks which have emerged over the last decade. I'm thinking of investigations such as LuxLeaks, the Panama Papers, as well as the Paradise Papers. What makes this different from those? What did you find?
Well, they sort of neatly joined up in some ways, really. I mean, especially, the kind of shell companies that we saw in the Panama Papers. We saw, how those companies, who set those companies up and who was behind them. And here we see this critical next stage, which is where they banked and where they moved their money.
More than 3,000 UK companies are named in your files, more than any other country. How do you explain that?
Yeah, in the sort of mid-2000s, early 2000s, the UK became wildly popular with money launderers, particularly those facilitating sort of illicit capital flight from Eastern Europe, Russia and Central Asia. And they found this particular configuration that they could put construct a UK company in a particular way where its owners were in the offshore, and it no longer looked like an offshore company, but it behaved like one, even though it had a sort of UK wrapper on it. And that proved wildly successful in opening bank accounts all over the world, but particularly in the Baltic region. That from there they were sort of at the races. There they could shift money around the world, pretending it was regular trade transactions, and that's how money laundering works.
Simon Bowers from the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, thanks for taking time to speak to us here on the programme.
Thank you.